Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for practice owners and leaders, where we are obsessed with how to build a successful practice and get a life too. Hi, I'm Chuck Blakeman, and we're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time, get off the treadmill, and rehumanize dentistry by giving everybody their brain back. Before we get started today, just a quick reminder to register for the Get Off the Treadmill Summit in Irvine, California, February 14 through 16. It's coming up fast, and since we keep these very small and intimate, I don't want you to have to wait until the next one. Go to gotsummit.com, G-O-T-T with two T's, gotsummit.com, and sign up today. I'll see you there. Today I'm with Dr. Matthew Norton, who's been improving the quality of life of countless individuals, as well as coaching business leaders and their teams to deep success breakthroughs for more than 35 years. He's the co-founder of Mindfluence. He's the co-founder of Mindfluence Revolution and the co-leader of the Elite Dental Experts Network. Over the years, Dr. Norton created a highly successful practice and became a passionate speaker, thought leader, and author of the breakthrough book, Where Does It Hurt? Dr. Norton guides doctors to become stronger and more emotionally intelligent leaders of their teams, their patients, and their communities so they can contribute at the highest level and achieve their most ambitious dreams. Today, we're going to talk with Dr. Norton about that emotional intelligence. Dr. Matthew Norton, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on your program, Chuck.
Thanks. Well, I'm excited about this. I think this is a topic of the present that in the future will become a big duh. But right now, I don't think there's anywhere near the attention on the concept of emotional intelligence in dental practices that we need to have. So I'm excited to talk about this today. So let's just start with it to begin with. Why is emotional? Well, let's say, what is it first? What do you think emotional intelligence is, so that we have a context for that?
The way I orient to it primarily is that it really is the ability to be aware of and become proficient at using our emotions to better connect with others, to be able to facilitate greater collaboration, greater productivity. So it's the human side, that emotional side, that is so much driving how we're feeling, what we're doing, beginning with awareness, and then what are we doing in terms of how we manage those emotional expressions, both within ourselves and in the people that we are serving and interfacing with.
Awesome. So I've heard in the past this idea of putting yourself in other people's shoes. Is that too simplistic, or does that capture emotional intelligence at least at some level?
That's really the empathy part, which is kind of often called social awareness, depending on who you're looking at in their writings, is really the first interpersonal element of emotional intelligence. And yet there's three components actually intrapersonally that are going to be kind of the precursors that spill over into how we do between ourselves and others.
So there's self-awareness, social awareness, and what else?
So the first one is self-awareness, and then it goes to self-regulation. So first of all, aware of our emotions and their impact on others around us.
So I'm angry, but can I do anything about it?
Yeah. To be aware of it, and then to say, how do I channel that? Yeah. Can I disrupt those moods and how I impact others?
Sure. Awesome. So why is emotional intelligence critical for practice owners and their team members?
Well, I think we come back to, what is the primary job even of the dentist, of the practice as a whole. If we define it as simply a delivery of an intelligent technical service, and that's the extent of it, then it probably doesn't matter.
Right.
If we could say that that the role in the community is people have, dental dysfunction, oral dysfunction, and altered physiology, pathological processes going on, and I have a technical answer for that to deliver, then we don't need to worry about this. But the way I see it, and the way I see increasingly the research beginning to clarify, is that that's not the primary job, and that's actually the easier part of it. Once you've at least mastered those technical skill sets, it's really the production of caring. It's to be able to successfully interact with and kind of to read and understand the team members, the patients, and to be able to connect with them. Those are the things that have been considered historically soft skills and minimized.
Yeah.
And to your point, something that will eventually, I think, become a duh. But in our ability, if we're going to provide a service for other human beings, that interpersonal dynamic, that ability to care, to connect, to influence those people, those are primarily human leadership and often emotion-backed or supported processes versus the ability to provide a technical skill set. So if we just considered, like if we had a cadaver, the difference between doing a crown or an implant on a cadaver, then fine, it's purely a technical thing. They have no role. There's no relational role in that, but it's the people part that matters.
So what you're saying is there's a person connected to those teeth.
Usually.
Yeah. Which messes it all up, doesn't it? It's just, if I could just work on the teeth, I find that in my business, if it wasn't for people, my business would be perfect.
Yeah.
Including me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people need to, I think one of the first things, once somebody shows up, or maybe even before they're going to show up, including the people who show up, maybe even more importantly, to start with, the people that are called employees or team members that are supposed to be committed to showing up on a regular basis alongside you, that, these are relationships, and the ability to know, like, and trust somebody, that's the beginning of any relationship. So if you're going to relate, if you're going to serve the public, and this is the chosen path that we're going to do it in a very direct way as a doctor providing services to a fellow human being, no matter what the service is, that's a human to connect with. And if that doesn't happen, much of what follows is going to be compromised. And it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to pull that off. It's
so true. I found that that this whole idea of soft skills has to be rethought.
Yes.
The research we've seen regularly over and over and over again is that when you're nice to people, you make more money. For 125 years, the research has said when you're nice to people, when you treat people well and you have emotional intelligence and understand where they're coming from and how to deal with that, you make more money. It's about the human skills. And yet we call them the soft skills versus the hard skills. And I've always thought of that as more of a put down. It's like, well, we got hard skills. How many shoes did you make? I can see that.
Right.
It's a hard skill.
Right. Yeah.
But are you good with people? Well, I don't know. It's one of those soft skills. It's a fuzzy thing. We can't measure that. Well, we're finding you actually can measure that. There's plenty of ways to measure that. And the reality of it is more important. The research I'm seeing is that the what we're calling, we've redesigned that in our own minds. It's no longer hard and soft skills. It's production skills and it's human skills.
Yeah.
And both of them are important, but the research is saying the human skills are even more important. Here's some astonishing stuff that we've dug up over the last few years. This is actually my fourth book. 90% of top performers have emotional intelligence. 90% of bottom performers don't. I mean, that right there is just illuminates the issue. Here's another astonishing one. People with the highest levels of regular IQ outperform those with average IQs about 20% of the time. People with average EQs outperform those with the highest IQs 70% of the time. If you have emotional intelligence, that actually trumps intellectual intelligence, IQ, 70% of the time. There's so much more involved in this that we could go on for a long time in terms of productivity of teams and all that stuff. It's amazing how important this is. So my first question to you is, well, I'm sitting here as a high C dentist who went to dental school on protocols and how to do margins, and I'm like an engineer, and I don't have these skills. I wasn't born with that. I wasn't lucky. What do you say to that person?
That can all be developed. That can absolutely all be developed. When people ask me about improving some of the behavioral aptitudes, when we do a DISC assessment, or what about some of the things in my motivator pattern that may not perfectly suit me for the specific role I play, what can I do about that? I say, well, that's typically probably not the best question. The thing would be, how do we optimize your strengths, keep those in play? How can we delegate some of the other things? How can we get you some support? Maybe how do we just make sure they don't take you down? But everything on the emotional intelligence is all learnable. And it really requires change. It requires practice. It requires more accountability, maybe, than some people might want. But this comes back to the science of habit formation and the science of changing a habit that is not serving you well. So these are deeply entrenched behavioral habit patterns, perception and behavioral habit patterns that can be upgraded, that can be modified. And there are training processes. That's really my most passionate work with people, is working with them at emotional intelligence enhancement. And because you're right in those statistics you're reading, they're also saying that the higher up you are in the organization, the more critical it is. It's not as critical for a team member, although it is very important. And there's a whole developing science around improving group emotional intelligence, which is really exciting to me. But as anybody who's going to be in a leadership role, it becomes even more critical.
I couldn't agree more. We've said this for the last 4 or 5 years now, as we've gotten into understanding these human skills aren't soft. I tell practice leaders and larger organizations, the DSOs and that kind of stuff, you've got to hire first for emotional intelligence. First and foremost for emotional intelligence. That anybody who's hiring leadership into the future should be hiring first for emotional intelligence. What do we hire for? Resumes.
Right.
And then we wonder why there's a disconnect. No, hire first for the emotional intelligence. Pivotal Labs is a fascinating example of this. They have about 2,000 people. It's a software company, and they hire for emotional intelligence. And the way they do it, more than anything, is they bring somebody in, they say, I can program. They never look at a resume throughout the whole process. The guy says, I can program. They say, great, come on in for a morning. We'll pay you $10 an hour, and we'll have you program for an hour with 4 different people. And then those 4 different people get together, and they ask the question, could we work with this guy every day? That's an emotional intelligence test.
Yeah.
And if they say yes, then they bring that person in for a whole week, have them program 8 hours a day with 5 different people. And those 5 different people say, could we work with this guy going forward every day? And that's how that person gets hired. They never look at a resume. Can they program? And can we get along with them? And that's that group intelligence thing you're talking about as well. But it's a fascinating, simple, this is not like you have to be some kind of a shrink in order to figure this stuff out. There are some very simple ways to see whether people are emotionally intelligent. I'm going to give one other example of this that was from one of our own clients. You will be fascinated by this one. A pediatric clinic in Washington State. We were there the day they were hiring 2 new dental assistants. They brought the last 8 people into the waiting room together, because part of that was they wanted to see how they deal with the uncomfortability of that. That's emotional intelligence.
Right.
And this is a pediatric clinic, and they do a lot of special needs things. So they needed people who were highly emotionally intelligent. They brought them into the waiting room. They gave them all 6 or 8 balloons and said, you have 5 minutes to make a balloon animal. And that was the big part of the interview. Right. And you can see 2 or 3 of them rolling their eyes. I'm an adult. This is beneath me.
Right.
And of course, they weren't going to get the job. And then there were a few others who did it. And there were 3 or 4 who jumped in and said, this is fun. Well, it's a pediatric clinic. They need to be able to think and be joyful about things like children and adapt. And then there were 2 of them that saw that 2 other people were struggling getting their balloons started. They dropped what they were doing. They went over and they helped those other people. Guess who got the job?
Yeah.
Isn't that a great example of hiring for emotional intelligence?
Yeah. I've had some doctors tell me that they just don't care. Like when it comes to social awareness, which otherwise known as empathy, that it's like, yeah, so if I'm low in that, I don't care. That's their problem, not mine. Well, I think even back to the soft science thing or the soft skills, I see the intelligence and the technical skill set abilities that have been developed to be the ticket in, right? That's what gets you to where you can open a door and say, I now am offering services like this to the public, but it does not mean that you're going to be able to serve people well. So if that's the ticket in, then what do we need to do to drive the rest of the human experience that's going to allow you to stand out as the place that people want to come? Why do they want to be there? Why should they choose you? If it's purely a technical thing and I can get this done cheaper, I can get it done closer to home, and I'm just comparing apples to apples of technical skill set ability, then I'm not sure that's the place that people would like to compete. I think it's really the fact that they know you, like you, trust you. They know and like your team. They sense that this is a place that really is going to serve me well, and everybody's for me here. And people have to feel it too. It's like, so that's why it starts intrapersonally, right? It starts with your own self-awareness, your own ability to self-regulate, your own. And that third intrapersonal one is the ability to be motivated for reasons other than the fact that I have a job I have to do and I need money.
Yeah.
That's back to kind of what we've talked about previously, which is a desire to contribute at a higher level. And then all of that precedes how you spill over into social awareness and then social regulation. Can you build and develop and hold large numbers of relationships and networks of people in a way that's done gracefully? And do they respond to you?
I hear that a lot from dentists, from some dentists as well, that I don't need to know that stuff. I'm a great dentist. Well, when you think about it, well, here's a statistic on that again. 58% of a person's job performance is accounted for by emotional intelligence. Of the 33 variables in this study, it was found to be the single strongest predictor of how someone will perform. Almost 60%. It matters. Yeah. But I think it matters even more in dentistry. Dentistry is a little bit like banking. What is it that I really buy from a banker?
Right.
From my perspective, I don't know. They might know that they're a better banker, and they might be able to give me 27 reasons, but I'll go blind and deaf listening to it because it doesn't mean anything to me. Right. I really don't. As a layperson, most lay people really have no idea whether they are with a good dentist or not. And so what they're looking for is that bedside manner, that connectedness, that a willingness to actually hear how I'm doing, and that you can see it in their eyes that they actually care, that they want to know how I am that day. And that emotional intelligence becomes the indicator. And it's frustrating. I can see it. It's frustrating to some docs who see doctors who really aren't as skilled just killing it because they're so personable. And they wish they had those patients because they know they could do a better job in that patient's mouth. But part of that starts with, we have to understand that mouth is connected to a human being. I've got one more success story in this. I really want to encourage docs to learn this stuff. I so believe in what you're doing when you say that this can be learned. I have a very close acquaintance who was born, and in his first few years, you could see he was nearly autistic. Right through 10, 15 years old, he was you could barely get 2 words out of him. He had all the little quirks and all that stuff of a very highly Asperger existence. Mm-hmm. In college, he joined a fraternity. He took Taekwondo to be social. He actually, when he got out of college, he actually took on a call center job with Hewlett-Packard, highly technical, but still relational, to learn how to relate to people. He really worked hard at it. And you wouldn't know today that he was deeply into the Asperger's spectrum as a child. He's not, he's not the most emotionally intelligent person you've ever met. But if you knew him, the progress he's made has been exponential. And it just should give people a real desire to grow in this stuff. We're not static human beings. We all may start in different places, but we can grow from there.
Yeah. Well, the more I've been studying this and delivering this service to others, the more I notice these things in myself, right? And hopefully that's the place where I feel convicted. I'll find these things, or with my wife, and it's like things show up, and I go, okay, well, there you go, touche. That was, an area of learning need for me, because we never have arrived, right, with any of this. The other thing I was thinking when you were mentioning that, in terms of, you mentioned earlier about greater wealth coming to those people with higher EQ, and also that importance of connection is really, that comes back to trust, right? Especially in those areas, like you said, like with banking, those areas where there's a technical element that the public doesn't need to know all the details, and they never will. But if they trust you, they will follow you. And also the statistics show that when they trust you, related especially to a higher EQ, there's much less likelihood there'll ever be a malpractice claim filed against you. The research shows that a patient is so far less likely to ever file a malpractice claim, no matter what went wrong, with a person that they know, like, and trust, that they feel connected with. And when they don't feel people, and it is, the research is also clear, I think, when you're more introverted, it's not as easy to clearly feel and know what you're thinking, and all of that. Much is going on inside. But even for introverts with a high enough EQ, that will compensate for that, to where you can engage that connection and develop that trust for more money, less malpractice, and I think a lot of other benefits.
Well, I think part of what I hear you saying, and I think this should encourage people as well, don't gauge yourself against where other people are at or where they've come from. Just figure out where you are and where you want to go and how you can get to the next step. Let's work on ourselves. I ride a bicycle. I may be faster than the next guy, slower than the next guy. That's not my measure. My measure is, well, am I improving? Am I doing what I can do to make this work? And I think that's what should be encouraging to people, is let's move forward from where we are.
Yeah. The best version of us, right? It's the best version of us.
That's right. Yeah, that's I need to be the best version of me. So how can people get a hold of you and get more of this?
They can go to mindfluencerevolution.com and learn more from our website. We're also on Facebook at Mindfluence Revolution, or Mindfluence Revolution Facebook page. If they would like to know more or engage on this topic of emotional intelligence, they can send me an email specifically at drnorton at mindfluencerevolution.com, Dr. Norton at mindfluencerevolution.com, and just express an interest in the emotional intelligence. I love doing emotional intelligence assessments, and would love to be, to engage in that and kind of see where you are and see what your needs might be.
Beautiful. Well, we're excited to push people in your direction. Give them a call, and let's grow our practice by being more emotionally intelligent. Thanks so much for being with us today, Dr. Norton.
My pleasure, Chuck. Thanks for inviting me. And collectively, let's get off that treadmill.
Let's do it. Let's get off the treadmill. Thanks, buddy.
Okay. Thank you.
If today's topic got your juices flowing, remember to register for the life-changing Get Off the Treadmill Summit in Irvine, California, February 14 to 16. Go to gotsummit.com, G-O-T-T with 2 T's, gotsummit.com, and sign up today. I'll see you there. If this podcast was helpful, please subscribe by computer or by phone, or connect with us at www.gotsummit.com, 2 T's, G-O-T-T summit.com. That stands for Get Off the Treadmill. We have those summits quarterly for dental practitioners only. Or connect with us at www.chuckblakeman.com, or email us at grow@cranksetgroup.com. Let's get off that treadmill. Let's get into the participation age. I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast. Thanks.